This is the game that never ends. It just goes on and on, my friends. Some people started playing it not knowing what it was. Turns out it's called a roguelike, and it's really pretty fun. Welcome to Triple Click, where we bring the games to you. This week we're talking about roguelikes and all the new games from Hitman to The Last of Us to God of War. They're adding roguelike modes post-release. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. I'm Kirk Hamilton.
I'm Maddy Myers.
And I'm Jason Schreier. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, my friends.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi again.
Hello. Hi again.
Hi again. Hi, everyone out there from here at Triple Click HQ, our listener-supported podcast headquarters. It exists in a virtual space in all of your dreams, in all of our dreams. It's a shared dream space from which we make this show. Triple Click is a listener-supported show. Of course, you probably know that, but do you really know what that means? Maybe you do know what it means. Our listeners are pretty smart. It means that we make this show with no ads. Well, we have some trailers for shows on our network, and other than that, we don't have any ads.
Those aren't ads. Those are promos. It's a totally different word, and it's a different spirit.
It's a different word, and it means something different. We make this show without any advertiser influence, without having to worry about any of that, because you all support our show, and we really appreciate it. If you want to become a member of Maximum Fun, you get access to all of our bonus episodes. There are so many of them, including the most recent one that we just did on things that we love from 2023, an episode on Baldur's Gate 3, and we've got an upcoming one about Martin Scorsese movies that's going to be really cool. You can listen to those and many more at MaximumFun.org/join, which is where you can become a member. Thank you all so much to all the members out there who keep this thing going. All right, let's get into it.
Yay.
This week, we are talking about roguelike modes and roguelikes and the kind of roguelike fever that has swept the world of video games over the last year. Yeah, I guess cool. So. The premise here is that roguelikes have been slowly gaining in popularity over the last maybe 4 or 5 years. But this past year, or maybe 6 months, it's been a really interesting time in that a few major games have had these infinitely replayable, randomly generated modes added to them, like God of War Valhalla. Hitman 3 became Hitman World of Assassination. The Last of Us 2, in its sort of PS5 re-release, got this no return mode. And they're all interesting in different ways, and just made us think that it would be kind of fun to talk about roguelikes and this style of game and why it's becoming more popular and these different versions of it that we've seen. So I guess I should say, before we get into why we like these games, why they work, why they don't work, when I say roguelike, this is one of those annoying semantic video game things where people will get very particular about what it means and what it doesn't mean. Of course, the root here is this game Rogue, a very classic game that has a series of very specific parameters attached to it. And it used to be saying that a game was a roguelike meant specifically that it was exactly like Rogue in these ways. And then they would say it's a roguelite if it has rogue elements, but it's a little softer.
You love taxonomies, though. I feel like you would love this whole definition.
You know, I do like taxonomies, and yet I hate genre. Is that kind of an interesting paradox?
No, that's,
in all things, in
that
video
totally
games,
makes sense. That makes sense.
Does.
I like finding meaningful distinctions, but
I mean, I think we all hate being excessively prescriptive too. Like, don't be drawing the lines and getting mad about them. We're not in favor of that.
Right. It's helpful for it, right? I guess I find taxonomies to be clarifying, and I find genre to actually be confounding. They're almost opposites in a weird way, even though they're so similar in terms of whatever their modes for categorization. So anyways, I'm not that concerned with that. When we're talking about a roguelike on this episode, we're just talking about a mode that is designed to be replayed over and over again, in which you lose some element of your progress, even if it's just how far you've made it through the procedurally generated levels or through the thing before you have to start over. And that has some element of procedural generation, but also probably gives you something that you carry on as well. And then past that, I mean, all of these are very different, actually, like all the different modes in these games I've talked about and then in other games that we've liked. So, you know, that's just it's a pretty broad term that can mean a lot of different things. So let's start just talking a little bit about, I don't know, when each of us got into these kinds of games and what the first one of these was. I have a feeling I know what it's going to be, maybe for all three of us. But Maddy, why don't you go first? What's your history?
Are we all going to say Hades? Is that what we're all going to say? Are we boring? No. Oh, no. Okay,
no,
fine. I'll be the one that says Hades. Okay, good. Then I'm allowed to be the noob, the newbie who says Hades. I don't really feel like this was a genre that I knew a ton about pre-Hades, which I think is probably true of a lot of people. A lot of listeners are probably right there with me and playing Hades and being like, oh, this is a format of game that exists. This is very cool. And I really like the structure of it. I also like that Hades, by having a kind of specific home base that your character keeps returning back to, it can do some fun storytelling maneuvering where every time you return, you talk to different characters around your home base once again, and they're like, oh, you're heading back out there, huh? How did it go last time? And the plot advances, even though you're kind of this immortal demigod, Zagreus in that game, who can't die per se, but certainly can be reset back to home again, which is just as annoying as dying in any video game would be. And even though the plot can advance and your progress is advancing as you go along, you still kind of have this very repetitive kind of entry-level set of enemies that you're having to face every single time over and over, even though they become just dust on your boot heel by the end of it, and you're just freaking amazing by that point. I really like that, and I feel like I probably would like a lot of other roguelikes, since even though Dark Souls and Metroid games are obviously a different genre, they have some similarities in terms of the repetition, going over old areas, fighting the same enemies over and over again. That's stuff I gotta admit I really love in a game. I love perfecting my little combat mechanics, and roguelikes are all about that. And that is something that's really fun about Hades and really fun about some of these other modes that we're going to talk about.
Nice. Jason, what's your history with roguelikes?
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing a lot of them for a while. I don't know if you would count the original Diablo, since it was so inspired by Rogue.
Yeah,
I think
maybe.
the one thing, what was interesting about the original Diablo is that it was originally conceived as a game with permadeath, which would have made it like a real roguelike, because every time you try to go down the dungeon, you lose, and then you have to go back. Eventually, Blizzard decided, no, we're not going to do that.
Though they still do offer that as a mode, right?
Well, it's a mode, yes. Yeah. And there's a hardcore mode I remember playing. So when I was playing Diablo 2, a shitload back in high school, I probably would have done a permadeath mode a couple times. Maybe that counts as a roguelike. More recently, I mean, I got really into Enter the Gungeon. I played some Dead Cells. Definitely was really into Hades. The three of us talked about that game a lot and really loved it. But I played a lot of these types of games, and the thing that I always enjoy about them is that feeling of kind of like being able to really experiment with new ideas or new builds every time you go. And Hades is really fantastic at that, because there's something really exciting about like, all right, you're doing a Poseidon build and you get just the right ability randomly generated from the door as you go through, and you're like, man, yeah, now I can really deck it out and get some Zeus in here, and so on and so forth. Enter the Gungeon was also really good at that, because Enter the Gungeon is a game where it's kind of, you're going through a procedurally generated dungeon, and there's these random gun drops, and each of the guns just does totally wild, crazy things. And that's the whole idea, is that it's the Gungeon. It's all puns about guns. And so there's a ton of different types of guns and weapons you can find as you go, and they make the experience really refreshing, because even though you're killing the same baddies every time, you're doing it in different ways based on the gun drops you got. And it's really exciting when you find the best possible gun, like at the beginning, and you're like, oh, sick, this is gonna be a good run. I could feel it. And that, I think, is something that's always really just kind of contributes to that lasting appeal, is like getting to know a game so well where you know, like, okay, I'm going to make a lot of progress this run. And a lot of games that do that repetitive sort of thing are kind of like that. And once you master them, you know, like, okay, this is going to be good. Even something as simple as threes, which I play on my phone all the time. Sometimes I'll just know, like, okay, this is going to be a good run. Oh yeah, still every single night.
That's
always,
like
always,
the
Maddy.
longest Jason's ever played anything is threes.
Oh yeah,
probably.
Well, threes is the best
Easily.
game ever made. You have to understand, it's the perfect video
It is
game.
kind of a perfect game. It's hard to argue with that
We should
statement.
maybe do an episode about threes at some point. But
I don't know. It's not. There
hard
isn't
game
even
to
much to
talk
talk
about.
about. It's
Yeah, I
just
know.
like a flow state game, like this. Like, people have asked me, like, how are you so good at threes? Because I've gotten pretty high scores, and
It's
I'm just
pretty
like,
crazy.
I can't even
It is
describe
insane.
it.
Yeah. I didn't realize you were still playing it. I feel like we talked about it years ago, and I didn't realize you were just still doing it.
Just
All right.
by habit, like whenever I just have, like when my wife and I are watching TV in bed,
Yeah,
and
you're
I'm
just
just like
playing
want to kill a few
threes.
minutes, I just
Wow.
do it. by default. I also like to have something to do, like while I'm talking to someone, or like, well, I'm just kind of a multitasker by nature.
Yeah,
anyway,
of course.
I think is the real appeal, is like getting to know a game so well that you're like, all right, got this awesome thing. Now I'm going to really do well on this run, and just kind of having that sort of mastery. And to your point, Maddy, I think Dark Souls has a kind of similar thing where it's like you really get to know a boss fight so well that you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing really well on this run. Really gonna nail it this time. I dodged this ability just right. Oh yeah, I really pulled it off this time.
Although the difference with the roguelike is there is that random chance aspect. That's really what you're talking about, is the good feeling. It would be like if Dark Souls had a random roll at the beginning of a boss fight that was like, this time around you're going to get 5 extra Estus Blasts or whatever it may be, and you'd be like, oh great.
Well, so what I think of specifically is kind of speedrunning, and how when you're speedrunning something, it's almost like you're treating every game as a roguelike, because you're like, oh, this boss didn't use this ability this time. This is a good run. We got this.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot to like about roguelikes in general. And Kirk, to your point earlier, I think the reason that we're seeing so many of these big games add them is because they're relatively cheap to make. You don't need to make a ton of new assets. You don't have to design a ton because you do this procedural generation, so you don't have to customize every single level you're doing. There's a lot of kind of compelling reasons to make this sort of content part of your game. And when you do it as well as Valhalla does, then man, that's a win. That's a big win.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute, because I want to talk a little bit of specifics about those 3 examples that I cited, just to give a little of my background. Yeah, I'm sort of similar to you, Jason. I've been playing these games for a little while, not as far back as Rogue, though I did play the original Diablo as well, and didn't know that was
game.
Yeah, it was fun. I thought it was really cool at the time. Like when it
every
came
time you
out,
get to the butcher and he's like fresh meat, and you're like, oh my god.
And there was that feeling of sort of. It's like it's not high risk, high reward. It's low stakes in a certain way, because you die a lot and you're not that attached to whatever is happening in this moment.
So it's low risk, high reward, I guess.
I suppose, yeah. So I'm thinking
low
about
risk, multi-reward, random reward.
the mindset that I think about when I imagine the feeling of playing a roguelike is actually the game FTL, whose makers then made another game called Into the Breach, which was also a fantastic rogue-inspired game. And FTL is a game where you're in control of a starship that's trying to make it through this sort of journey through the stars, and all kinds of different things can happen to you along the way. You have to be able to sort of really quickly issue orders. You can pause the game, which is actually really nice, and issue orders. You get very good at pausing and, oh no, the engine is on fire, and like the warp drive is out, and we're not going to be able to jump, and we're being attacked. Oh, we've been boarded, and like we have to vent the air out of this one section, and it's a lot of sort of ship management, and it gets very chaotic as you go. And of course, you die a lot in that game, just like in all of these kinds of games, but there's that feeling that you get when you're on a really good run. Just your ship, it's got everything it needs. You have all of the, all the oxygen and all the power, and your crew is like super good, and you have that feeling of, it's both, I'm really excited because I have this cool thing, and also I recognize that this cool thing could vanish at any moment, and it's probably already happened to you once or twice. So there's kind of an impermanence to it that I think really just dovetails well with the way that video games work, and it's one of the things that makes all of these kinds of games so fun. Inscription, another good example. You wind up with a really good hand in a deck building roguelike. I know there are a million of those that people love. You can get a great hand, and you get a great set of cards, and it's a really good feeling, but you also aren't too attached to it. And sometimes in really long games, you get too attached to a certain thing. Like in Dark Souls, you kind of wind up a little locked into your build, especially before you get a respec, or in the older games where you only have a certain number of upgrade mats. So you basically max out a weapon and then you just have to stick with that. Or just not even systemically, you just get good at playing a certain way. So then you just always do the same thing to every boss. What I really like about these kinds of games is that they allow you to use a lot more of the game. So they push you to try different things because whatever. Hades obviously was a game that I loved as well. We all loved it. I think it was a really big moment for this style of game just because so many more people liked it. A big part of that is the narrative stuff you were talking about, Maddy. Just that it had such a cool story, that the story was built into the repetition. And also, I think that just this was something that Supergiant, the developer of that game, had been building toward. Like, they had been working on making games that encouraged you to try different things. I really love their game Transistor, because the systems of that game, it's not a roguelike, but that's built into it. You have this upgrade system for the sword that you're using, and you get some abilities that you really like. But if you take damage, your abilities are the things that take damage in that game. So whatever move that you've been relying on over and over again will get broken if you take a hit. So then for a limited amount of time, you suddenly have to reconfigure the sword to work totally differently. And sometimes if you take a bunch of damage, you'll find yourself just like at the far reaches of your ability tree using stuff you never even knew existed before, and then realizing that that's really fun. They kind of force you to change up your play style. A lot of games don't do that because they want to give you options and make you feel empowered. And then that's something that Hades did as well, especially with incentivizing you to use different weapons, because each weapon in that game is like a whole different game. And I found for a while I was like, spear boy, I just use the spear all the time. And then I realized like, oh man, the fists, like the punching fists are really awesome and they're totally different. And eventually I've like played that game entirely through with every weapon.
Yeah, it's now I just want to play Hades again. Man, this is really getting me going.
Hey, you're gonna get to play Hades too pretty soon.
I am, and I'm so excited. So do we want to talk about God of War Valhalla for a second? Because
let's start with that. So I think that these three examples we're going to talk about, so that's God of War Valhalla, The Last of Us 2 No Return, and Hitman World of Assassination, are all actually interestingly different than a game like Hades or FTL, which is designed from the bottom up to be a roguelike. These are roguelike modes that are added to the game, which I agree, Jason, is a really cool thing to see, and it does seem like it's more doable. Like that's the sense playing it is you're like, oh, this seems like this wasn't too hard for them to make. And it's a great way to just keep using the great combat system they made for God of War, for example. But it does feel a little different because you kind of unlock different abilities, but you're basically, you're Kratos. You have the like Kratos abilities that you had in the main game. But anyways, yeah, let's start with Valhalla. I know, Maddy, you played a lot of it, right? What did you think of it?
I did. I feel like God of War Valhalla is actually really leaning on the narrative elements that can be used to great effect in a roguelike, where there is kind of the home base Hades-esque, where the conversations change pretty much every time there's a character you can revisit. Like if there's someone there, you're like, oh, I better go talk to this person because they haven't been here in a couple of runs. I got to check back in. But also over the course of each run, you run into people and you get to have conversations with them as well. And I really liked all of those aspects of the game. I think people probably remember God of War combat is fine to me. I know this is blasphemy to the two of you. It's fine. I think it's fine. But it's not like this doesn't work if you don't love the God of War combat. It's perfectly fun, and you can still get something out of it just from a story vantage point, which is the way that I was engaging with it. And I still really liked changing up my playstyle as much as I could. I mean, it's Kratos. There's only so much you can do. He's never going to be a live archer like his son. Like you're not going to like totally change things Hades style. You're going to have an axe. But I did really like the opportunities and encouragement to continue to change up how I was playing. I did have to totally remember how to play God of War in the first place. I'm sure that also happened to the two of you at least a little bit in playing, where I was like, oh yeah, I'm like Thor in this game. I can throw my axe and it'll come back to me. So that was cool. But mostly I just was like, man, other games should do this with their stories. Like they should have more opportunities for the characters to kind of leave the house, go do some battles, and then come back and have like an overarching story back at home base again. Because just as a storytelling mechanic, I think it's really effective and really cool. And I just was really pleased with it happening in a God of War game.
You're just describing Midnight Suns again.
I am. And that's another great game.
Yeah, it's something I really like about Valhalla is that it takes a lot of ideas from Hades in clever ways. One that comes to mind immediately is kind of guiding you along a path that rewards you for sticking to a certain ability. And so like we were talking about, like it's very much like you mentioned, Maddy, you're encouraged to try different playstyles as you go with Kratos and play around with the different weapons. But it does more than that. It kind of like the abilities are loaded in such a way that like you will get certain ones, or you'll be more likely to get certain ones if you go down a certain path. If you at the beginning you're given one of two choices to make, and you can can say, okay, I'm going to focus more on the axe this time, or I'm going to go with the chains this time, or whatever it is. And I think that's a smart way to approach this type of game, because it really feels like you're kind of tailoring a build, and you know the best way, the optimal way to beat enemies, as opposed to just kind of like having to choose from a hodgepodge of different abilities every single time. And so I think that's a smart idea, and something that Hades really nailed. The other thing is kind of the giving you special bonuses if you choose specific things, like at the beginning of each run. If you choose a specific shield and a specific type of perk or whatever, you'll get extra bonuses for doing it that way, which is another thing that Hades really mastered.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it wasn't even really fair when I said that, you're kind of Kratos and Kratos is Kratos, because actually God of War did introduce a ton of different, shields, for example, and runic abilities. There are so many runic abilities.
Three big weapons, each of their own.
Yeah.
And Valhalla, spoilers, but there's a whole new type of weapon. It's not quite a weapon, but I guess it's a new rage type of weapon as well.
Do you mean like the blue sword that's technically from the other God of War games?
Yeah.
And not a new weapon if you think about it.
Sure, new for this iteration of God of War.
I had to look that up because I've never played the original God of Wars. And so Kratos pulls out this blue shiny sword and he's being all emo about it and not answering questions from Mimir about what it is. And I was like, well, Google, what the heck is a sword?
Yeah, you didn't play 2018, right,
I
Maddy?
didn't. I was playing Dante's Inferno.
So that was the reason I asked that is because there was a giant plot point in 2018 about him putting the chains aside and then taking them back out when he had to, which was like a big part of the story as well.
Right,
so
yes.
similar echoes of that.
Yes. So I actually have appreciated that from what I've played. Like even just being encouraged to use the spear, which is a weapon that's pretty cool, but I never really used it in Ragnarok. Just
because you don't get it till the very end of the game. So you don't have that many opportunities to use it.
Right, and it's not essential. There's just, it isn't encouraged in the way that a game with this kind of roguelike system can be like, okay, you now have runic abilities for the spear and only the spear, so you better use the spear. And then I can also just say, all right, cool, well, on this run I'm using the spear. We'll see what happens. Where in the main game, it was just much more likely to be like, well, this is a big boss fight. I'm just going to use my axe because the axe whips and like I can use the axe for everything. Actually, ditto for the blades for that matter. I don't use those that much in the main
like my
game,
favorite.
but
they're so fun.
They're fun. Yeah, no, they're great. I mean, all the weapons are really balanced. There's a sense playing this that I get playing a lot of these modes, just that I'm getting to really enjoy the work of all the people who made this game. Like a whole group of people spent forever designing that spear and making it into this super cool and very distinct weapon that then I'm guessing it got like 10% of the combat time compared to the axe and the sword for most people playing Ragnarok. So now they add this mode that's like, all right, now we're really going to let you use it. Ditto for whatever, shields that have like a really kind of unusual combat style.
When am I using the shield in God of War? Never.
Right.
I'm all offense and no defense. That's it.
Right.
But I kind of enjoy the shield play in the game in Valhalla, like using a shield as a weapon and a defensive maneuver. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a smart way of encouraging players to just not feel as committed to things and then to just sample the vast array of systems and abilities that are put into these games. Like God of War Ragnarok was overstuffed, but God of War Valhalla doesn't feel overstuffed because it edits for you. That's true, and that's true of the story as well. Maddy, you were talking about loving the idea of having a game where you're in a kind of home base where you talk to everybody, then you go out and do stuff. And I was thinking, well, structurally that is the same as, I don't know, Horizon Forbidden West. Like there's a base in that game and you go out into the world and you come back.
Or Suikoden 2.
Or whatever, Mass Effect or any of those like RPGs. But it doesn't quite have the same feeling because the game isn't as tightly edited. It's not like you're in a loop where you just go out for 15 minutes and then you're back in this room and you talk to everyone again. And it's like really layered where each time you see someone, you know they have something new to say. It's a much more sprawling and just very differently paced ability or very differently paced setup. So I think that it's a really cool to see a game edit itself in this way. And I don't know, I wish that every like big AAA single player game did this. It's really cool that so many of them are.
Well, so the advantage that Valhalla has is that most of the people coming into this already know all the characters, and so it's much easier to connect to like, oh, cool, Freya has something to say when you already know about the relationship that Kratos and Freya have, and it's a lot more impactful when Freya's saying, "We want you to be the new God of War here," when you know all that history and context. Hades, one of the things it was really good at was kind of like introducing these new characters and making you care about them almost from the get-go and make you want to keep talking to them and seeing what they have to say. But most games just don't have that same level, same caliber of storytelling chops and character building. And I'm specifically thinking about Horizon Forbidden West, which is a game that I thought was good, but like I just never cared about the characters in that game for one reason or another, and had no interest in doing any of their quests at the base or anything like that.
Hades did have the advantage that these are all mythological characters.
Yes,
I mean, you do kind of know who Orpheus is or whoever from the beginning.
True.
So obviously their takes are distinct and the characters are cool and you're interested in them. But yeah, they did have an advantage.
Yeah, sure. But Zagreus being such a compelling, kind of snarky, like protagonist helped a lot with that as well. So a lot of that was a writing strength.
No, for sure. Like those characters in Horizon Forbidden West, if they had been written with the same verve and excitement as Hades, like they would have been the same situation, even if they're not mythological characters. Yeah, I think it's an interesting contrast to a roguelike mode that doesn't have that kind of a story. I guess let's talk about The Last of Us 2 a little bit. I think I'm the only one that's played that, the no return mode in the new PlayStation 5 version of the game. And it's really interesting. I mean, it's critically compelling and I think really well made and fun to play. I mean, the combat in The Last of Us Part 2 was always, for me, it's probably its strongest aspect. I mean, when you're in the thick of it in a game, or in that game, like when Ellie is in Seattle and she's in this kind of sprawling outdoor mall, going in and out of buildings with clickers and infected and scavengers running around, and the AI is just absolutely incredible. The animations, the way that the fights are designed, like it's some of the best combat design I've ever experienced in a video game. And it's really interesting to take that and just totally remove it from the story. So No Return is totally just structured as, it feels to me like multiplayer levels. Like every level in it feels like a multiplayer level. It would work just fine as a multiplayer, whatever
like
control
a
point.
Left 4 Dead kind of a multiplayer shooter, or
like The Last of Us multiplayer in The Last of Us, which was fantastic. Like it had a really good competitive multiplayer mode, and it was set in maps that were different areas from the game. These maps feel kind of like those maps. Like it feels like playing Horde mode in Gears of War 2, where you'd be in a multiplayer map, but you'd be fighting against enemies. This feels kind of like that. And you have to make it through an escalating series of levels. They get more and more complex with different types of enemies. You can play as Ellie, you can play as Abby, and then eventually you can play as like Dina or Joel or like all kinds of characters who wouldn't have even been doing what they're doing because there's no narrative framework at all. There's like none. The only narrative that exists is just what guns have you gotten, what upgrades have you gotten, what path are you taking through the levels. And I understand that decision. It's probably the best decision that they could have made. It would have been very strange for a game with such a like weighty story to suddenly add like new story elements or even new like dialogue barks for the characters.
Yeah, because they would have had to like set it during a specific time in the game, which is kind of what I thought they were gonna do when I heard about this mode. I was
and I think that given the options, this is the best choice for them to make. But it is very interesting to then play through this game that still has some of the awfulness and the intensity of the violence, which was a part of the narrative of The Last of Us Part 2. Like, when you kill an enemy in this game, their friends will call out for them by name. This is in the roguelike mode. That still happens. So you're still feeling like, wow, I feel bad for murdering these people in that way that was an important part of what The Last of Us 2 was trying to do.
I remember that just got stupid after.
No, I know you guys didn't like it, but The Last of Us Part 2 was going for something very weighty. They were trying to make the violence feel impactful.
We're just telling jokes. We're picking up what you're putting down.
It's interesting seeing all of that put into the context of a just straight up action game with no story. Right. Because it's really good. I mean, when you're playing it, you're on the edge of your seat. It's like incredibly designed combat with some of the best action systems I've ever interacted with. It's just very weird to be playing as Ellie just because it accompanies the game that it accompanies. I don't really know how to resolve that or what to do with that. It's still cool that it exists. Like, the people who made it are probably really proud of it because it really is like an amazing roguelike experience, and it only falters for me because of the single player game that came before it, which is just kind of a weird thing.
Ludonarrative dissonance in a nutshell.
It's like ludonarrative dissonance across games almost.
There's
like,
no narrative.
Yeah.
It's just Ludo on its own.
Right, you
in a
remove the
vacuum.
narrative, and yet still, it's still there.
Well, it's ludonarrative dissonance because it's the same characters as the
that's
game.
true.
So it's
and we
they're
have a
not-
narrative association with this.
Yeah,
character.
that's a very good point. I wonder if they had made it without.
I think it probably would have worked better for you if it was just kind of randomly generated.
I
like you just make
wonder.
up
I
random
really
characters.
wonder. That's a very good point.
I don't know if it would, because I feel like you need the emotional resonance of seeing these characters, even if that's paired with the kind of mental weirdness of being like, what? I'm fighting as Abby and
You know
Joel
what,
in
though?
co-op or whatever. I don't know if there's multiplayer.
I
at
think
all.
they could have just made it that you play as one of the kind of minor characters from the game, and you're just that one character, and you just get to be that person throughout the whole thing. That could have been.
Or you're just Ellie the whole time, or Abby the whole time.
No,
or
but not
whatever.
Ellie or Abby. No, that's the point. Is like you're not playing as someone that
Right.
you know super
You're
well.
like some person.
Yeah, like a minor character from the game, and like you just play as them the whole time. I could have seen that actually working a little better, and just they're on some scavenging mission
Right.
where they're running into a bunch of enemies that they have to fight through. It would have still been the same exciting combat. I don't need to be playing as Ellie for that to feel exciting to me. I could just be playing as some person. It'd be nice to have like the same person that you kind of get attached to over the course of the game, but it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, and then it would kind of be its own story about this individual person that you get to know. Even if they barely talk at all, you would still kind of feel like you knew them.
Yeah.
In the way that you play a video game and we all kind of feel like we know Master Chief on some level because we are him, even
Right.
though he doesn't have a personality at all. Yeah, I feel like that'd
Right.
be interesting if they just had a no return protagonist who just was the protagonist. And then you don't have the baggage of like, oh, I'm playing as Abby and I have Abby's backstory.
Right, or the weirdness of like when you play as Joel, I think Joel just has all of Abby's animations because they didn't do all new animations. So it's not like Joel does his animations from the first game.
Wow.
So it just gets
what an
a little
insult to Joel's memory.
It just gets a little weird. I think some people actually do think that.
Did you guys watch the new documentary they just put out, Grounded 2?
No, I kind of want to. It sounds interesting enough.
Yeah, how is
Have
it?
you watched it?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's hard to watch any video game documentary without comparing it to the Psychonauts
Double
one, which
Fine.
is so transcendent that it just
Yeah.
like blows everything out of the water. And so this one, it'll spend like 30 seconds on something that might have been an entire episode in the Psychonauts documentary. But
Well, right. This one's 2 hours long too, right?
it's 2
And
hours
not
long
30
over the course
hours
of
or
a-
whatever.
But it's interesting. There's a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of interesting
Yeah.
kind of info about the making of the game and how it all went down and how COVID affected them and then how the hack affected them and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that was a dark time online.
They mentioned the word crunch.
That's good.
Yeah. They talk about trying to fix their work-life balance issues, which I thought was interesting.
Nice.
That's good.
They talk about kind of hiring producers and working to try to make things better for the next game.
Nice. Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch it at some point. So let's talk a little bit about Hitman World of Assassination, because that, I think, is another really cool and really interesting roguelike mode that was added. This was last fall, I guess. This was added to Hitman 3, where really what they did was they took all of the levels from the first 2 Hitman games. This is of the more recent trilogy. There are all of these huge levels with 1 billion NPCs in them and all of these challenges that have been designed over many, many, many years. They took all of that and put it under one roof. And then they built a new roguelike mode that uses every single level, every single challenge, every weapon, every system they've ever made for all of these games. So just like years and years and hundreds of hours of work. And they've turned it into this one roguelike experience that, to me at least, feels a little different than the other ones we've been talking about. It feels like...
Yeah, it sounds way harder and more ambitious and complex.
It could only exist in a game like this, and it feels like a final exam. It's really, really fun. I mean, it is super fun to play, but it's just like if you've played a lot of Hitman, it's so cool to use all of the knowledge that you've built up over years, not in a way that felt very challenging at the time. Like for me, I just played the Hitman games. I know Sapienza pretty well because I liked that game many years ago. So to have a new challenge in it where it's like, okay, you get one shot, you got to take this guy out and then get out. And it's that kind of, one shot, disposable run mentality that really lends itself to this kind of game. It works so well. I think that it's amazing that they did it. I felt kind of almost, I don't know, relieved to see them take all of this work and this incredible thing that they built and actually turn it into a box set, a Criterion collection that has everything under one roof. Just because there were so many times over the years where it felt like Hitman was going to get kind of derailed by various stupid things that shouldn't have been derailed by the online requirement of the first game, or the fact that the second game tried to fold in the first game, but then you can only get the one on Steam and the other one wasn't on Steam, or I don't even remember this.
Yeah, and it was like hard to understand what to buy. Well, so wait, can you back up a second and talk about
how
it
understand.
actually works?
Yeah,
so,
how does this work as a roguelike? So you have to go through every single...
Oh, okay. I thought I talked about this last year on the show, but I guess I can explain it. So you are, once again, Agent 47, and you're given this kind of compound, this underground lair that's your kind of home base. And it starts with nothing in it. And then you unlock a few basic weapons and you go to a computer and it gives you
like
your first
being
challenge.
An assassin anywhere. You start out in a featureless basement with nothing in it. And
exactly.
then you unlock a couple weapons.
Well, and the idea is that there is this like a more kind of ongoing narrative where you're just building yourself up as a freelance assassin.
Got it.
So you go to the computer and the computer says, here's 3 missions. It's there's one in Sapienza, there's one in the US small town, and there's one like I don't know, wherever on this island.
And these are randomly, this is part of the random element, is that the missions are random.
It gives you a choice, and then they're chosen from the locations of the first 3 games. But because between DLC and these games, there are like a billion areas. Like, it feels totally ludicrous. If you came to it fresh, you would be like, how is this game so big? Each of these areas is this fully fleshed out, massive, interlocking, complicated contraption of a world. So you can just pick which one you like best, or just which one sounds most interesting. And it gives you some parameters and a target, and you go there. It's not totally random. I think they've put some thought into which characters would make interesting targets, but it could be anybody. It's not like the known targets from the story that are still walking around in the world. It'll just be some civilian or some guy who's in a hard-to-reach building, and then he'll have some guards around him or whatever. You have to try to take them out and then get out. If you do, over time, you build up better guns and better starting loadouts, and soon, by the end, I didn't get that far, but by the end, your little underground bunker is like weapons all over the walls and all kinds of cool shit everywhere, and it's fully decked out. Yeah, and it's become your Batcave. He's basically a super villain.
Terrifying.
So it's just cool. It's like a really smart way of...
Wait, so what is the roguelike of it exactly?
Well, it's that you only have one shot. It's not like
on
Hitman,
each map you only have one shot, or like the entire run you only have one shot?
On each assassination that you attempt.
And okay, so it's basically like you have everyone is an elusive target, basically.
It's very similar to the elusive target.
So when you
setup.
said it was a roguelike, I was imagining a run where you have to like keep assassinating the targets without ever dying. Like that's what I was picturing when you said it was like a roguelike.
Well, it's sort of both. Like, you're working your way through a syndicate, and that's a series of missions, and those missions all tell you who your target is. And if you screw up, you lose your progress. Like, it's definitely a roguelike. And then at the end, you have to take out the syndicate leader, and that's like an elusive target where you don't know who they are, and you have to identify them, based on clues by exploring the map.
Got it.
There's kind of that feeling of stress, but also relief that comes with, okay, I don't have to quick save. I don't have to do any saves coming or whatever. I just have to figure this out. And it leads, again, to really using all of Hitman's systems, which, again, this is like a really complicated immersive sim. But because it offers so much freedom, when I would play it, I'd always just kill the guy in the best, most silent way possible and then finish the level. And it was very rare that I would everything would go pear-shaped and I'd find myself having to shoot a bunch of guys and run and try to get out. But in this mode, that does happen. And it's really fun whenever that happens.
Are you ever in a situation where they're like, okay, you have to kill this guy, but you only have a briefcase, and it's like just an absurd situation where you just have to beat him to death?
Not usually, though the original game does have that, because there are those, I can't remember what they're called, escalations, I think, where you'll have a target and then you have to kill the target again with an increasing series of restrictions. And eventually those do get to where it's like you have to kill all 3 of these guys within 30 seconds of one another using only environmental kills. And they've always designed it where there is a way to do it. You just have to figure it out. It almost gets into speedrunning territory, to bring it back to that, Jason.
Right. Where it's like a puzzle where you just have to figure out what's the exact one way that I can do this, and there's going to be only one solution to this specific puzzle. Yeah. That is interesting. I guess roguelike is a decent name for what that is, but it's almost like its own entire category of thing as you've laid it out.
Yeah, there's definitely that element of impermanence and the way that it forces you to improvise with what you've got. And I think that all of those elements are it really feels like you're playing a roguelike. But then again, because it's such a huge game, it's the culmination of so many different levels and so many systems, and it has all these interesting things in common with the base game. It's sort of its own thing. It's true. But I love what they did with it. I mean, I really do. I would love to see more games, especially games in this style, design this sort of challenge, like arcane games, any kind of immersive sim or stealth-based game.
Yeah. Like a Deathloop version of it or something.
Well, there was Moon Crash.
Yeah, Prey Moon Crash actually is a great example.
It reminds me of the Elden Ring mod where it just randomizes which boss fight you're going to get. I mean, that's kind of more of a microcosm version of what you're describing. Like, I don't know how you would randomize everything in Elden Ring, but I'm always fascinated by watching those runs where it's like people who just suddenly have to face Melania or whatever, but they have almost nothing at the beginning of the game. And then like later in the game, they're like, oh, this is actually really easy because I'm way far along. Like to just have the addition of randomizing specific enemies and assets from a game, or like the Legend of Zelda randomizers. Those are always really fun streams to watch for the exact same reason, because it's like just adding in the element of random chance on top of mechanics and a character that you already understand how to deal with all of that. But what if they were in this totally other permutation? Right. That is the recipe for fun.
Yeah, it's a thing that players will do on their own with mods, like you're talking about. But it's really cool when the designers of the game have the freedom and the ability to do that kind of thing. And yeah, I think it's totally the kind of thing people should do more of. It certainly has made me want to go back to all three of those games. Actually, all three of the games that I've said, I've gone back and played and have been really happy to do it.
Roguelikes are cool.
Roguelikes are cool. I think that's our verdict. And Hades 2 is going to be great.
Do we have any other single-player game that we wish had a roguelike mode? Is that we can end on that? I'm trying to think of one. I can't just say Metroid. That's not allowed.
I would say that like anything like, though, I mean, Resident Evil does have modes kind of like that.
True.
Like some of those time trial modes in Resident Evil are really fun, and any kind of survival horror game in that style is great. I think Dead Space would have been really fun to play something like that in the Dead Space remake.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Any game like that where you're kind of managing resources and fighting your way through rooms full of monsters. Like it really lends itself to this sort of thing. So yeah, those come to mind anyway.
What do you think, Jason? Suikoden 2 roguelike?
I mean, there are a lot of Final Fantasy randomizers that I think are always really fun, because they start you off with like an airship, and it'll be like you have to go around and get X number of key items, and it's a very fun way to play those
That's
games.
the same kind of idea.
Yeah, it's a very cool. It's a similar idea, and you really have to know a game extraordinarily well in order to be able to play this and get good at it. And so yeah, it's interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool ongoing trend, and we'll see how it develops. It's cool that all these recent big games have had this, and I hope we'll get to see more of it.
Yeah, I hope there are more.
Yeah, and then in the meantime, Hades 2 will come out, and we'll get to play that, and that'll be pretty cool too.
Maybe Tears of the Kingdom we'll stick in.
That would be wild if that happened.
That would be wild.
If they were just like,
God.
yeah, we're gonna make a roguelike version of this. God, that'd be sick.
That would be pretty sick. I would play it. All right, let's take a break, and then we'll come back with one more thing.
My name's Doug Duguay, and I'm here to talk about my podcast in the middle of the one you're listening to. It's called Valley Heat, and it's about my neighborhood, the Burbank Rancho Equestrian District, the center of the world when it comes to foosball, frisbee golf, and high-speed freeway roller skating. And there's been a Jaguar parked outside on my curb for 10 months. I have no idea who owns it. I have a feeling it's related to the drug drop that was happening in my garbage can a little over a year ago. And if this has been a boring commercial, imagine 45 minutes of it. Okay, Valley Heat, it's on every month on MaximumFun.org or wherever you get podcasts. Check it out, but honestly, skip it.
These are the chronicles of the Rancho Equestrian District in Burbank, California. These are the events taking place in my house, around my house.
Hello, sleepyheads. Sleeping with Celebrities is your podcast pillow pal. We talk to remarkable people about unremarkable topics, all to help you slow down your brain and drift off to sleep. For instance, we have the remarkable Neil Gaiman.
I'd always had a vague interest in live culture, food preparation.
Sleeping with Celebrities, hosted by me, John Moe, on MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Night-night.
All right, and we are back with one more thing. Jason, how about you go first?
Yeah, so Super Bowl 58 just happened, and I kind of want to recap it. Problem is we are recording this the week before the Super Bowl because Maddy and I are going to be traveling after the Super Bowl. So as people hear this, they will know the outcome of what happened, but we don't. So instead, I'll just try to recap it based on what I think will happen.
Well, this is great. Okay.
The Chiefs just came out like all cylinders firing. They looked up at Taylor Swift in the box and they were like, "Man, we got to do it for Tay Tay. She just announced a new album. She just won the Grammy. Like, we got to do this for her." And so Travis Kelce and Pat Mahomes teamed up to score 40 touchdowns, and they scored 210 points. And Travis Kelce won Super Bowl MVP. And after his ceremony, the 49ers scored 7 points. They one touchdown.
And Jason placed bets on all the above and won.
I did, and won big time. And which I'm now in Vegas spending all that money on the craps table. And so Travis Kelce gets up and it's like an incredible game. He's like, "Oh my God, like I've never played this well." And he gets up and he's holding the Super Bowl MVP trophy and he's like, "Tay Tay, this one's for you." And then he kneels and he pulls out a ring out of the trophy. Like he grabs it from within the trophy.
Wow, like they pre-placed it in there because that's how confident he was.
That's how confident he was.
I'm
he
gonna
taped
win
it
and
on the
propose.
inside. And he gets on one knee and proposes to Taylor Swift on the Super Bowl stage.
Do you think the listeners are bored listening to this because like they all saw this?
Yeah,
already.
they know this happened. Yeah, so I'm just kind of
and they're like, why are they going over this point by
why
point?
are we
We
doing
know.
Yeah, it's
We
all
know.
anyone's been talking about for the last week.
We've all seen
pretty
this.
wild. And meanwhile, on the other side, so Brock Purdy, he is the quarterback of the 49ers. I don't know if you guys know this. This is a fun tidbit. Brock Purdy, who has just played in the Super Bowl, he is called Mr. Irrelevant because he was the last pick in the NFL
Rude.
draft.
What a rude nickname.
Nobody, well, it's kind of
but
like...
he's like re-embraced it now because he's not actually irrelevant.
Well, it's not about re-embracing it. No, it's just that's what you call like the last pick in any draft, Mr. Irrelevant. It's like that's just the name, Mr. Irrelevant.
Wow.
And so Brock Purdy is the first last pick to first in a long time to like become a starting quarterback and really seize like the opportunity. And so it's pretty cool that he made it to the Super Bowl, but alas, the 49ers defense was not able to stop Travis Kelce and Pat Mahomes from just like going to town, just running train all over them. Just congratulations to the Chiefs and to Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift on getting engaged. She said yes, by the way.
Of course.
That's at the Super Bowl. And congrats to Usher, who came out and just did an incredible halftime performance that involved just
congrats to him on that.
Congrats to him. Holograms of every dead singer that you could possibly think of just showed up on stage with him.
Frank Sinatra and Usher did a duet.
Frank Sinatra, Elvis.
These have all become memes by this point.
Kurt Cobain and
pretty
Usher.
crazy.
Oh my God,
Kurt
can you
sang
imagine?
All Apologies together.
Yeah. David Bowie was up there. Yeah, it was pretty nuts. It was pretty rocking. In fact, people loved it so much they extended the halftime to be an extra couple hours just to fit everybody in, and that was pretty astounding.
Yeah, that was pretty controversial. Like everybody was up really late that night watching just the halftime show, but it was fine. The players weren't tired at all after that.
No.
They still were doing great.
Yeah, they're energized by the music.
Oh, also one more thing happened. Crypto came back.
Cool.
That's
right. That's right.
And now we're all in on crypto.
That was wild. Yeah, we all got rich. We went to the moon. We rode the whole thing to the moon.
Yeah. Well, Matt Damon came out and he was like, "Fortune favors the bold," and we were all like, "Oh, actually, yeah, it does." And
that turns out you're right about
That's
that.
true.
We got some crypto. Yes.
It was a big Sunday.
Yes. So yeah, Super Bowl 58. Just a great time. Just a really great performance all around. And congrats again to the Chiefs and Travis and Tay Tay.
Yeah, excited for them.
Nice. Well, thanks, Jason, for that entirely accurate recap of everything that happened on Sunday. Maddie, what is your one more thing?
All right, my one more thing is a television show called King of the Hill.
Yeah.
So Dina and I have actually been watching King of the Hill for months, and it's a really good television show. There's like 19 seasons of it. People know I didn't watch television growing up. Wasn't a thing in my house. Dina is too young to have grown up with King of the Hill. We have a 7-year age difference. Just a fun fact, I'm 37, she's 30. Anyway, so we're watching King of the Hill. Did you two watch this show because we're
Yes.
all
A little bit, but
millennials here.
not regularly.
Yeah, because it was after The Simpsons, so I would always watch it.
Right, and
after
you
The
were a
Simpsons.
Simpsons person. I
On
know
Sunday
that.
nights.
So I really love this show, and I'm now
Yeah.
one of those people who's just trying to convert others into becoming King of the Hill fans, and
That's a
what
great
I
show.
will now do on this very episode. So the premise of this show came out before people were making all the jokes about boomers that they make today, but it is about a man who lives in Arlen, Texas, and his name is Hank Hill, and he is a boomer, and he loves Ronald Reagan. And the show is an extremely gentle, sweet mockery of the idea of being those things that is kind of almost on Hank Hill's side and lets him be right about things, but also allows his young son Bobby to repeatedly own him. And Bobby is, of course, a millennial, although he's 10 to 13 on the show, depending on which episode or arc you're watching. And it is like the most relatable possible television show for someone my age. I didn't grow up with a Reagan-loving person in my family, but both my parents are from the South. My dad actually moved around a lot growing up. We don't need to get into Maddie's backstory, but there's many jokes in this show that Maddie, can really understand because like they really remind me of family members, and like a lot of the politics and specific time period of the show just really, really work for me. And it's also just heartwarming in a way that I really didn't expect. Like a lot of humor from this time period has kind of a mean, disaffected spirit to it. And that's fine. I mean, I grew up listening to Nirvana. I was really upset about Kurt Cobain being in the halftime show, by the way. I was really upset by that decision.
It's pretty sacrilegious.
I can be disaffected and jaded. I can get on board with humor like that. But that's not what King of the Hill is at all. And I really like it. I'm really digging it. There have been just so many episodes that Dina and I have had like full conversations about and being like, wow, like this reminds us of this or that happening in our childhoods, or just, conversations we've had with our boomer parents. So if that's you, just try the pilot episode. It's an incredible pilot episode, but also watch the whole show. It's really, really good. King of the Hill. Good television show.
Now that we're grown-up millennials, I feel like we appreciate the merits of propane a lot more.
See, it never stops being funny is the thing. Like Hank Hill's obsession with propane throughout the entire show is really good. It's
incredible.
Great. There's
Well,
an
he
early
is a propane
episode.
salesman.
There's an early episode where they have a flashback to Hank Hill as a child, where like all the other kids are talking about their career goals, and they're all like, "I want to be an astronaut. I want to be president," and he's like, "I want to sell propane and propane accessories." And like the joke is like Hank Hill's dreams came true because he just was like, "I know who I am," and he knew who he was from moment one. That's who he is.
It was funny, Maddie. A few weeks ago, I was talking about learning a lot about propane because we had to run our house off of a generator, and you immediately were like, "Oh yeah, like Hank Hill." And even at the time, I was like, "Interesting pull for Maddie." Like, yes, I guess he is a famous pop culture character associated with propane, but why Hank Hill?
Well, he's the famous pop culture character associated with propane. Actually,
an interesting thing about that show is that that show was co-created by Greg Daniels and Mike Judge. So Mike Judge was the creator of Beavis and Butthead, who would go on to write Office Space, and like he wrote Idiocracy. And there's definitely like a kind of a sour, like a darkness, a cynicism.
Yeah, like Idiocracy is kind of not my thing.
No, it's pretty mean.
It's pretty mean.
But Greg Daniels would go on to make Parks and Recreation and The Office.
Right. And so
it's
they
this
kind
cool
of balance
mix of
each
their
other
two.
out. Yeah.
Yes, that's where I'm going with that. It's a cool mix of their two mentalities, their two approaches to storytelling and character.
It's pretty great. It's like if Parks and Rec is too cloying and Idiocracy is like weird and mean, King of the Hill is there for you.
I know people love it. I've always wanted to watch it. Maybe we'll just watch it. It does seem like a pretty great show.
It's really, really funny.
I love Boomhauer. I've always loved Boomhauer.
Oh my God.
Fun to have a character who talks funny.
Yep.
Nice. Well, my one more thing is also an animated television show, and one that is really interesting, and I think that maybe some listeners won't have heard of. So the show is called Scavenger's Reign. Do either of you know this show?
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it.
Maddie's heard of it. No. So this is a show that's on Max, R.I.P. HBO, but it is a Max show. I started watching it because some friends recommended it. They were like, this show is really cool. You should check it out. Emily and I just put it on, and whoa, it makes a hell of a first impression. It's not like anything I've seen in a very long time. It's an animated show, definitely a very adult animated show. It's not like a kid's cartoon at all. It's about a group of people on what appears to be kind of a colony ship that's set out with a whole bunch of other colony ships in a kind of some sci-fi future. And they got lost. The beginning of the show is basically the people at the home base saying, oh, one of our ships didn't make it through the jump. And then it just cuts to this show. And the whole show is about a handful of people, kind of three main groups. I haven't finished the first season, so maybe there are more, but it's sort of three main groups of people who have made it off of the ship, which was stuck in orbit, and onto the surface of this alien planet, and are trying to survive and kind of get back to the ship and just make it out or get home. But what sets it apart from any other shows that have had that kind of Lost in Space, that kind of setup, is the imagination on display, the way that they've imagined this alien world. Because I've never seen anything like it. It's so thrilling and strange and constantly surprising and interesting. This world is just totally bizarre. It really feels like what it would be like to be on an alien planet. They can breathe, so there's oxygen, so they are able to walk around. But everything beyond that is just the weirdest looking plant or animal or creature you've ever seen, behaving in a way that kind of explains itself biologically. Once you see how it's working, there will be like a huge sea slug will pull up onto the beach, and it'll start like eating these eggs that were out on the beach because those are its eggs that it's putting into its sack because there's a storm coming. So then it goes and floats out in the ocean, and they actually hide inside of it to get out of the storm so they don't get hit. Or I don't know. I mean, I can't even describe it. I could try and I would just fall short. I could not possibly describe the visual strangeness and splendor of this show. It reminds me at times of old 80s anime that I used to watch. There's definitely some body horror, some pretty crazy stuff that happens. Sometimes it reminds me of Miyazaki movies, of Studio Ghibli movies where, like a little weird freak will just kind of walk through the frame and you never see him again, but it's this delightful 2 seconds of just something beautiful and weird happening. But yeah, it kind of just defies description. You really just have to see it. Episodes are a half hour long. I really recommend it. If you're feeling like, I'm watching all the shows everyone's watching, I'd love to see something more imaginative and odd, something that kind of sparks my imagination. Really, the show is not like anything I've almost ever seen. It's very, very weird and very cool. We're both really, really loving it. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to shout it out for anyone who thinks that sounds interesting. I think a lot of our listeners would like it. So that's called Scavenger's Reign. It's on Max, and it's very, very good. Yeah.
You can also watch it if you want to keep up with social conversations at polygon.com with your coworkers. That'd be another reason why maybe you would want to watch it.
All of our polygon.com worker listeners
the folks at Polygon are into it?
It's definitely like a cool sci-fi show that people refer to.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm not surprised that people who are into like kind of more interesting, like hipper, edgier stuff are into it. It definitely feels like groundbreaking in a lot of ways.
And I'm just there being like, Dale Gribble's a really funny character on King of the Hill. You guys heard about this?
You guys heard of Hank Hill? He's a pretty interesting guy.
They still let me work there. I don't know.
That's good. They haven't run you out just yet. All right. Well, that is another episode of Triple Click. Thank you all so much for listening. And thanks to all of our members for supporting our show. Until next week, Maddy and Jason, I'll see you then.
See you guys next week.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddy Myers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edit and mix the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Some of the games and products we talked about on this episode may have been sent to us for free for review consideration. You can find a link to our ethics policy in the show notes. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll consider supporting us by becoming a member at MaximumFun.org/join. Find us on Twitter at TripleClickPod, send email to tripleclick@MaximumFun.org, and find a link to our Discord in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.